So the call to order for the Fairfield Lake and Ted Committee on February 20th at 6:35 p.m. Everybody, I think, is here. Tom Keene, I think everybody was on that email. He resigned. So we have another opening. So if you know anybody who you think would be a good fit, please encourage them to apply. It is, there's a link to boards and commissions on the town website that you can direct them to. Okay. Approval of minutes from January 17th, 2025.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, or any discussion, comments? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Town department updates. Santina, since you're here, would you like to anything for us?
No, the only thing I wanted to follow up from last month was, Tom, I don't know if you got connected with police department. I think he sent you an email following the meeting. So I know you had some questions about the data that they collect.
Tom resigned,
No,
and I didn't hear I didn't hear anything about that. Can you just remind me which police officer you had connected him with?
Mike Stahl. And
Okay,
I can connect someone else if you guys would like.
Anya and I are actually meeting with him next week on something else, so maybe I can just bring it up when we're there.
Perfect.
Otherwise, I'll just talk to him at another point.
Okay. And that was all for me.
Okay, great. All right, engineering is not here, and I don't see Mary. So I'll just move to the chairman's report. A few things. One, the new LTA met for the first time today, and I listened in, and I think it's going to be a good change. There's a lot of, if you go to the Fairfield Traffic Authority website now, it's up, and she's the vice chair, and then Kevin Keeley is on the police commission, and he's the chair. And so Mega has done a lot of work putting a website together, and it lists like ongoing projects and has actually like a project timeline, things that I think are going to be really beneficial for the public. And I know something that I was frustrated with trying to get stuff going is like, what else is out there? Where does it fall? Like how long is Villa going to take? What are the whole, like that's all kind of up there with estimated like project dates and stuff. So we encourage everybody to check that out. It also sounds like they have a lot to work out in terms of the process and things like that. But from like a public transparency point of view, it's already like a big improvement. The LTA, I guess in the police commission's last LTA meeting, approved the school zones that we've been talking about. So that's going to the state for approval.
I'm sorry, the school.
The school zone. So the additional school zones that the police department are going to, or are trying in the process of implementing. So it's like the second round of school zones. So Riverfield, for example, was in the first one. This one's going to include some of the private schools. Tomlinson, that was left out of the initial one. I think Woods. So a few more schools. And then I think there are 4 left after that. So it's really the bulk will be approved in this next round. Captain Irizarry also mentioned that there were greater than 100 citations in the first 6 school zones with the new approval. So they are enforcing the reduced speed limit, which is great.
At least at the beginning, right? I don't think they have the resources to stay there.
Right. So that's where the cameras come in and why.
Right. They were approved, did you say?
They were approved by the Fairfield LTA. So now it has to go to the highway safety, like the state level.
This law, that would be like automatic.
Once they approve, then they'll put the signage up. But I don't think they had it took a while, like it took a couple months, I think, to make it through that.
Wait, signage up?
When they put the signs with the reduced school zones and that all happens through DPW after it gets approved with the second body.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about the cameras.
The cameras are different. Those also will, I'm pretty sure, have to be approved by this body. once our local traffic authority approves them.
Oh, so the cameras have not?
No, the cameras,
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the cameras.
no, we're just talking about 10 more school zones in Fairfield that will have reduced speed limits
Got
to 20 miles per hour.
Thank
It will allow the police to enforce it just old school, until we get a speed camera ordinance and speed cameras. Okay. The second thing I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of is the Board of Ed is proposing to increase their transportation policy or change their transportation policy, which would increase the walking distance for elementary school from 3/4 of a mile to 1 mile, and from middle school from 1 mile to 1.5 miles. It seems that they're considering this based on the fact that they're assuming there's going to be budgetary cuts from the First Selectman and or the Board of Finance, and this is one item that they feel that they can reduce spending by increasing the walking radius so that they don't have to guarantee bus service for those kids. We can have a discussion about it if we want. I have concerns just from like a safety component because you're increasing the distance. Like we're at the 3/4 of a mile mark now, and most of my neighbors drive their kids every day. So you're just going to end up with more cars on the road, which is a danger to the people who are already walking or biking. It's new, like it's not super straightforward. I think Anya and I attended the previous policy committee meeting, and I think like there's a huge like bus efficiency component that could be explored. I don't know if the Board of Ed is going to do that or not. So I don't know if you guys have questions or if we want to talk, if I missed anything. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is Santina?
Santina, did you have something to say?
I'm sorry, Sarah?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were trying to say something. Is somebody else on the line? Okay.
Mary Hogue just joined.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi.
I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit as far as the bike efficiency.
Bus efficiency.
Thank you.
Okay.
Efficiency. What we were referring to is the fact that so many of the buses are empty, and not universally empty, depends on the school and the route, but many of them are empty. And Sarah and I and Greg Bosch is very involved with BOE. We've been brainstorming various ways. I don't want to give any examples because I'm afraid I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, but I'll just say we've been brainstorming various ways to increase its efficiency because ultimately, like my standpoint, and I think Sarah and Greg as well, I think the bus is a good place to cut money because it's so inefficient. But rather than it just using a blunt tool of changing the radius, I think we should be looking at routes. We should be looking at like bus assignments. We should be looking at stop frequency. We should be, there's so many more things we could be looking at to save money on the buses rather than just cutting it off. So
that was basically like the gist of my email because I wrote the board, and I was like, I think it's a great idea, right? I think it's great for kids to be walking, but you all like the implementation needs to be looked at, right? Because I'm in the McKinley district. McKinley abuts a commercial area, right? You can't have kids crossing Black Rock Turnpike, but
well, and that was another point that kind of came up in the meeting that I want to make sure we kind of see through, and maybe like a working group of us can try and take it up with the Board of Ed. Is there's talk about the safety like routes that they do, like for example, so they don't want people crossing Reef Road, right? Sherman, they don't want people crossing that, so without a whatever. So now they're bused because they don't want them to cross Reef Road. So something just came up though that like for Mill Plain, for example, we have multiple kids that have a house stop, and then there's a bus stop. So there's house stops because it's not safe for those kids to walk to the corner to the bus stop, but then you have 3/4 of a mile kids walking the rest of the way on Mill Plain. It's like, does that make sense, right? And so that's something that I think I would like to kind of see through with them, like what those safety analyses look like.
Can I ask? I only had one kid go to school up here for the last few years of high school, so it's a different phenomenon. Yeah. But it strikes me that pre-COVID, there were a lot more kids taking the bus than now. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if there were more kids, if you could get kids onto it. I mean, I understand that it's a cost-cutting measure, but if there were more kids taking it.
Well, and I think one of the ideas, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but one of the ideas is like, you could offer more kids courtesy rides, right? So like my kids, I could throw on the bus, right? Like, so you could, but we should just stop.
Ideas.
You're right.
I feel like we're
But
ideas too.
right, we can talk offline for ideas for that.
I think the one last thing I wanted to mention that was really specific is that Tuesday, February 25th,
which is
next Tuesday, there's going to be a town hall meeting. It's going to talk about facilities, finances, I'm reading from the flyer, facilities, finances, and programs. It's at 7 p.m. I think it's going to be at the Board of Education office. So Sarah, are you planning to attend? I'm planning to attend.
I can. I have a conflict.
Okay, I'll attend. Other people will attend. And I think it's a good opportunity to kind of because the town hall, there's going to be more speaking than in a normal meeting. So, if you can come, voice your thoughts. And if anything, I would love to have everyone in this group push for like a real audit of how we're doing our buses, rather than for very safety reasons, like Amy mentioned, and there's so many. But yeah, I think that would be a good opportunity.
What are the topics on that meeting?
The official topics are, so FPS families, let's talk about facilities, finances, and programs. So really anything. I feel like that's pretty broad. I know that another group is also organizing attendance, the digital wellness group, so they'll be talking about devices in schools, which I also plan to speak on. So there'll be a variety of topics, and I think it'll be a good opportunity for people to get up and talk. So I think it would be good to elevate this issue if you can make it. If you can't make it at 7, I'm sure they'll be talking for a couple hours. So make it later.
Good on that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sound Cyclists reached out. They have their big event May 18th, I think it was, at Sherwood Island. But
what is the event?
It's called Blooming Metric. So I think it's their big ride. They have a couple different distances. And so I wanted to mention that, and then they're kind of looking for different ways that we can partner with them. So I think for that specific event, they're going to have tables.
When did you say it was?
May 18th. So we can consider if we want to participate in that. I did tell him, we're happy to promote it once we get our social media engine up and running. I also talked to him about potentially working with us on the bike buses and having some seasoned riders who can participate. And that's that. So if anybody has any other ideas, we did talk briefly about maybe doing some sort of community ride. So we can, if anybody's interested in pursuing that, we can connect you with Jeff.
I will, 2 things.
Yeah.
One, I'm wondering if it's possible to ask him what portion of Fairfield targeting.
You mean for volunteers?
No, sorry. What proportion of people who show up to the ride are from Fairfield?
Oh, I see.
Table.
Yeah.
How many people are actually relevant to our table?
Okay.
I will say I accidentally went to that event last year. It just happened to be Sherwood Island that day, so I saw the tail end of the event, and it was extremely well attended.
Yeah.
So if there's a significant portion who we think are from Fairfield, who we have target audience, then I think it'd be worthwhile.
He did say most of the bike club is Westport and Fairfield, but I think the ride attracts a lot of people from Long Island and Westchester County and other parts of Fairfield.
So I think if you don't have at least a quarter Fairfield,
we can ask him.
Not worth our time.
And I'm happy to talk with him too, just about how we might partner in the future.
Okay.
If you want to connect me.
Yeah.
Alex, I will just warn you, he's a great guy. He's not extremely responsive, so if you end up getting in touch with him. Huh? Is it Jeff?
It's Jeff now. No, Jeff Goldenzi. He was a former RTM member.
Sorry. I was thinking of the previous organizer.
I don't know if he's just the Fairfield, he's a local Fairfield resident who was he was in a meeting with
me. It was a different guy.
I think it was, yeah.
That was an unusual short name. Okay, never mind then.
All right.
Sorry, scratch that. I don't know the Jeff. I'm sorry.
And then the last thing for me was just in the vein of talking about what kinds of crashes kind of are in the news that involve bikes and scooters and pedestrians. There was one in January that Alex raised, a 16-year-old who was operating an e-scooter at night, was trying to cross Tunsis Hill on a red light. So I guess she pressed the crosswalk button but failed to wait. and a vehicle traveling through the green light did hit her going about 25 to 30 miles per hour. It seems like it was minor, that like she was fine.
She was clipped or something.
Yeah, so, but they did, I guess both the juvenile and the driver were issued warnings, and I guess they were encouraging riders to wear bright clothing at night. So just to raise that up, again, because what we do here matters. Okay, that's it for me, because I have you talking for Safe Streets Alliance, if you have an update, and
very briefly.
Okay, and Alex for the Greenways.
Okay. Are we talking about social media today too?
Yeah.
Sorry, you just send out the agenda. Survey, I'll keep it nice and short. So I created a survey. I think I mentioned that I was creating it at the last meeting. Sarah, I think you sent it out for feedback, right?
I think I did not, but we can send it.
Send it out. I think I'd rather send it as FYI. I have a lot of feedback already. So I'll send it out as FYI so you know what's coming out. And unless you feel like something is really broken, I'm not especially considering feedback right now because I already have a lot of it. So I'd like to consider it 99% complete. Anyway, the survey is, the goal is to measure the effect of a number of different metrics.
Wait, what was it? Sorry. What is the goal?
This is for the Safe Streets Alliance.
Okay.
So we're going to have a campaign bringing awareness to the responsibilities of drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians on the road. So everybody kind of doing their part. We just decided on our tagline, which is road safety starts with you, and you being bikers, walkers, or drivers. So we'll be talking all of them with clearly an emphasis on drivers and speed. So this is a survey that's meant to kind of assess the status today on how people pursue road safety in town, where they think issues are, and also we'll be following up in a number of months to see how that might have changed with the launch of the campaign. So that's really it. So we'll be sending it out. I'm kind of excited. It'll be going to 22,000 Fairfield households, as well as being sent to the high schools.
Is it printed or is it like, how's it getting out?
SurveyMonkey
Okay.
is the tool that we'll be using, and as far as getting the word out, since it'll be coming from the town, they'll utilize kind of the town email addresses that they have for everybody, so that'll be blasted out. I'm sure it'll be a newsletter, I'm sure it'll be social media,
Just a question about the database.
Yes,
Does the town maintain a database of emails, or is that the?
Those are people who are opted into the First Selectmen's newsletter.
Oh, newsletter, okay. That's it.
So, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is an effort an education campaign, right? But there's a survey that's preceding the education campaign, or is the survey part of a way of educating people, or is it both?
It is part of the campaign, and the idea is to send it before the start of the campaign to assess people's understanding of their responsibility today and their perceptions of the roads, and also to kind of
As a baseline. Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I guess I was wordier than I meant to be.
No, I just want to make sure I was.
Yes, it is, yeah. So it's part of the campaign, but it will happen before the campaign as well as we haven't decided the exact number of months after the launch.
Got it. Thank you.
That's the survey.
Great. Alex, do you have about the Greenway project?
Sure. So Sarah asked me to look into Greenway, or kind of like take over that relationship. Do people know what that is, by the way?
Say again?
No.
Project Greenway?
I've heard of it.
Do you have like a short explanation?
Yeah, so this is tied into the East Coast Greenway. So it's the idea of having like a biking, walking path from Maine all the way down to Florida.
Oh, it's the East Coast Greenway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So there's an opportunity. It's kind of picking back up steam again in Connecticut, mostly in Stamford and Norwalk. They have a lot of advocates that are interested in and kind of pursuing it. Stratford too, yeah. And so Jeff Randolph had been included in some meeting, and he kind of kicked it over to us. so I kicked it to Alex,
Yeah.
to try and explore. I guess there's grant money that's out there that we can apply for to connect our greenway. Right now, the greenway in Fairfield basically goes from some beachy area. It's not Jennings, but like near Jennings.
Southwood Beach.
And then, then it goes like through the Old Post Road, and I do think it then picks up like Pequot, by Southport Beach. But you can look at it online and it tells you exactly.
There's a whole GIS. So like part of what Sarah asked me to do is just kind of like understand what the funding opportunities were, whether the route itself was mutable, whether we could change it, and just, when the funding deadline would be, et cetera. So I spoke to from the project. There is funding available through DEEP. There's the Connecticut Recreational Trails funding, which might be what you were talking about.
Yeah, I found it.
Is that right?
I tried to find it on my phone quickly. I'm not sure if I was seeing it.
All right, well, that's where we could get some money for this. Applications are due in May, so we still have time. We would be responsible for 20%.
Wow.
So, we'd have to make a case, obviously, with the town. We can change the route if we want it to be different.
Okay.
And again, like there's GIS data, and I link my notes in the project tracker, which has a link out to the GIS data, which kind of like shows the path as it was intended.
Do you know how they came up with that path?
Go ahead.
So everyone should know, there were already 4 designated, official biped-endorsed bike trails in town. And the very first one was, I think they call it the Beach to Beach Road, which ran from Southport Beach to Jennings.
That's right.
That part already exists. And I know there's some overlap with the East Coast Greenway, because I've seen East Coast Greenway signs. Very specifically, I know at the intersection of Harbor Road as it goes over the mill. I remember seeing a little sign there. And so I assume they're along that path. So in terms of reinventing the wheel, I don't think that route already exists. I don't have a copy of the map. But that door hanger that I think Santina, do we still have any more of those handlebar hangers?
Yeah, we do.
So if we could just get some of those so we're familiarized. I'm realizing everybody around this table probably has never seen that. And again, to your point about it, I think that kind of already exists and will prevent you or save you from having to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that does the door hanger show the route essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. And that route, just so you know, is not only worked out, it's worked out and approved by the police. So it had multiple layers of approvals. So a lot of eyeballs saw that. Okay, so
Anya.
I have a question. To make this, the route, possibly the same route that we already have, part of the Greenway, what does it mean to make it part of the Greenway? Is it just like putting up signs? Is it putting up bike lanes?
I think
what is the grant for?
The grant would be for doing more planning, and I'm just looking. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be essentially to do more planning and to make it safer. So he was talking about on-road and off-road. Greenway would be a combination of on-road and off-road. Off-road means not on the road. Yeah. So and the example he used is do you want the route to change because you might want it to accommodate different things? Do you want it for economic development? Do you want it for transportation equity? What are the goals that you want?
Right.
Because then you can shape the route accordingly. And as part of that, the grant money would be to do planning around how you might make the route safer, both on-road and off-road. So
this is another planning grant.
It's a planning grant.
And do you know what amount it would be?
I think you said somewhere 300, 250.
Okay. And then do you know, is this a federal grant?
No, it's a state grant.
If it's a federal grant, I wouldn't even bother.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, what he said was the first steps would be to schedule I think I'm all right, well, walk me through what you would do. How do we go about filing a grant and all this other stuff? So, we have to think about what we would want out of Greenway, and he mentioned that Sacred Heart had talked to them as well about coming up with a trail that would connect their campuses. So I've asked for a contact there to understand what that conversation was looked like in the past. And
the Sacred Heart is not.
No, they're very far.
Is that how would that be?
I don't know.
I think when they say East Coast Greenway, they're talking very broadly, East Coast. It just means the eastern part of the United States, so that it doesn't mean to Florida. It doesn't mean that it needs to be literally on the coast.
I guess this goes inland though, so it wouldn't really.
It doesn't
need to go
It doesn't need to be near the water.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be near the water. There are no the point is there are no fixed requirements on what he was saying. He was just saying start small, figure out what your goals are, and then make the route. Come up with a route accordingly. He's get together with the engineering and planning, pull up a big map of Fairfield, come up with some requirements for what you want to accomplish with it, and then put together a proposal for the grant.
Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think that the East Coast Greenway can have multiple routes through, if you're coming down the Hudson, you might be able to, I think it's designated for the Rockland side, but I feel like there is probably a Westchester side, for example.
I don't think it has to be one, it's not one route.
Continuous route.
It could,
yeah.
Because what he was saying too is that, start small, and maybe that's what you were talking about, with the door hanger, all right, we put some signs up, we have kind of a route. The next iteration of that was where do we want that route to go through our town? That's what we get to decide. And to your point, it may be that the route has a coastal component, and it might have another component that goes more inland.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that says it has to be one path through Fairfield.
And to your point about those routes that have been plotted out before, those were mostly assembled, one for obvious point-to-point across sections of town. There was another one that went from Lake Mohegan to Jennings Beach, and there were a couple. The last one was the one winded through Greenfield Hills. I kind of circumnavigated the top part of town. That was obviously a lot more involved. But to your point about what was the criteria, well, one, it was just to establish this, tell people these are relatively safe and designated areas so that you don't have any obvious obstructions, and the police kind of weighed in on that. That's the problem. Intersections will go around that. So safety was a criteria.
And believe he started by saying, and it was kind of shocking to hear, but where's the place where the person's least likely to die, and that you want to fix it? That's kind of So we get to define the criteria. We get to define the route. There's a funding opportunity ahead of us. He's laid out steps that we can take in order to do this, and I've given you some of those clues, figuring out our own set of requirements, looking at the current route, looking at a map of Fairfield, thinking about hey, what do we want this route to touch on? Do we want it to go through downtown, the beach? Figuring out what our requirements are, and then working with as many people in the town to kind of generate this route. And then, kind of start work on a grant proposal.
Okay.
Are there?
Usually, just from my meager experience here, and I'm about to start work on a bike path in Rockland County. In that case, there were multiple rounds. There were a couple of rounds of studies to kind of identify what the route would be, kind of to figure it out, both from a planning perspective and an engineering perspective. So I wonder how precise we need to be.
Yeah.
Before, you're hiring someone to be the planner and figure this out. So I think that we can think about it fairly broadly.
Totally.
And then, but what we do need to define is what the purpose of it is.
And I think so. I don't think it's a bad. I agree with what you're saying, and I think we can it wouldn't hurt to kind of have our own perspective on it, take it to like planning and engineering to get their buy-in. And then, you know, as it was said, I think part of what this grant money would be for is to actually hire the professionals to like see that through and make the route, you know, come up with interventions that would make the route safe.
Yeah.
So the question then is like, how do we want to proceed?
Yeah.
Do we want to have, he was suggesting a small group, like from this committee, like meet with planning and, you know, zoning, or not planning and zoning, but like planning and engineering.
Yeah,
and
that makes sense.
Start to kind of like flush it out.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Anybody else want to work with Alex on this?
Yeah, I'll help out.
Oh, all right, awesome.
East Coast Greenwood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know. I'm a troublemaker at work.
Yeah, what are you not involved with, Jeff?
Yeah, we'll get Jeff involved. What was I going to say? Oh, I did learn that the grants writer left, though. There's at the town, so that is a hiccup going forward, but I don't have any more information than that. No, the way it worked for this SS4A grant was like a few of us, not in the town, did a lot of the writing, and then just kind of like went through the town process. But that is a bummer. We don't have a specific point of contact anymore. Okay, anyway. I skipped public comments before, sorry. Jeff, I'm going to get to you, but did you want to speak tonight? Sorry, I forgot your name.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say something really quick.
So just your name and address.
Sure. So, my name is Mike McDonald. I live at 1509 Brookside Drive. Before that, I lived at 833 Mill Plain Road. So I've had, in the 5 years that I've been here, a fair amount of close calls playing Frogger across the street with cars speeding around. And then just as well driving around the town, witness to a lot of opportunities for technology to step in to make our town a safer place. Firsthand, I've seen how technology can improve transportation. It's what I've spent 10 years building and deploying to parking locations across the nation. And I cannot advocate more strongly for a system that is there 24/7 to keep people honest, to keep people safe, to keep people from committing an end result that impacts more than just themselves when something goes wrong. I think that research has shown that people driving more slowly reduces the severity of an accident and the likelihood of permanent injury. I think that's pretty common sense. But I humbly request that you guys do everything in your power to, and I know that you will, I gotta say it, to avoid Fairfield from becoming one of those towns that becomes a poster child for another town where the community rebels against the new technology because they don't feel like they've been included, or it opens up our town to millions of dollars of settlements or redisbursement back to the public for things like signage not happening appropriately.
Sir, can you elaborate what you mean by new technology? I know we talked about speed cameras. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, definitely. The speed cameras. And I know it's not like these weren't invented yesterday.
Yeah.
New technology is new to Fairfield. But again, I just, as an interested party here in the committee, or in a community here, just wanted to be a more vocal member here. And so thank you all for what you're doing. I've been following all of the updates online. So I appreciate it. And hope that you know that I will definitely be there with the school bus discussions that's going on as well, because I'm right at that border. Thank you very much.
Mike, just one thing. So the RTN is taking up the speed camera ordinance on Monday.
Okay.
So there's a meeting. I think they're at 8. I don't know, I would have to look, but that would be a great time to go and voice your support. They're going to be voting on the speed camera ordinance. So what that will allow is for them to put speed cameras in the designated school zones, potentially rolling out, I think there's pedestrian safety zones and then red light cameras too eventually. So there definitely is support from the police department to use them in the designated school zones. For Riverfield, for example, is now a designated school zone. That happened in September. So once this ordinance is passed, it will allow the police to apply for speed cameras for that area. So then there would be enforcement there 24, during the reduced speed limit during school times. So that's how the ordinance is structured.
Awesome. Great. And then again, just thank you for what you guys are doing. I love smart city stuff and seeing the place where I live, embracing just new ways of using state funding, hopefully federal funding as well, if that's still a thing, to be able to just be a poster child that other towns and communities in our state can look to as a way to make our utilities more accessible and safer for everybody.
Don't forget there's an opening on the committee.
There is. There's two now. Yeah. So if you're interested.
Transportation is in my blood. You guys know Spot Hero and Parkwiz? The digital payments, the QR codes, the license plate reading cameras, I love products. So I have deployed things to probably about 75% of gated and ungated parking locations in at least the United States, but across North America. And I love technology.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming tonight, too.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you having this here where people can be able to.
You go back on that because don't shoot that.
No. The high price of free parking, it's basically bedtime reading material. I love it.
We should also talk offline because there's a lot of stuff going on Mill Plain, and that we need the school community for, so.
Okay, I can definitely mobilize
a
lot of people.
Okay, and then Jeff, did you want to give an update? I mentioned briefly the LPA. I hung on for about 2 hours.
It started at 4. Yeah, so I know just about everybody here except Mike Allen, Jeff Randolph. Okay, thank you. Amy Barrett. Okay. Yes, I met you in person. I've been on the phone with you several times. So the LTA has had 2 meetings now. Local Traffic Authority. LTA. Local Traffic Authority. Thank you. So just to give you, and I'm on the Local Traffic Authority as an alternate. I'm on planning and zoning for, I think most of you guys know that. But we're off to a good start. The group is open to suggestions. They're process focused. We're trying to get a better process, and I think it really ties back into the policy and procedure, a lot of the things that are called out in the policy and procedure plan, which I'm trying to kind of wiggle into their mindset. So we've kind of road drafted a policy and procedure plan that been working on with Sandy and Adrian, and anybody else is free to comment on it, but it's based upon Smart Growth America's framework, and it really highlights many of the gaps that we have right now. There's no prioritization for projects. There's no criteria for selecting projects. There's no, I think design standards we're probably okay on. That's trending pretty well because engineering's doing it, but there's no overall process, and that's come to light very quickly in our second meeting that we need a better process. So I was just in with Christine Brown, and the chairman of the group is Kevin Kiley, who's been on the Board of Finance. Did any of you know Kevin? He's very experienced running groups and asking really good questions. So I think we're off to a good start. There's a PMO office. Have you guys heard about this? There's a program management office that Bill's setting up to look at all the capital projects. And for a program management office, you know what this is, really looks at the sequence of events for projects, you know, the scoping, preliminary design, bidding, implementation, and it takes those phases and it looks at every project and puts it in those phases. Right now, engineering is just looking at design, and that's the weakness. They dive right into design. So there's a process being laid out to really identify and prioritize bike and ped traffic safety projects. Now, what I'm advocating for is figuring out where you guys fit in. And I think the suggestion right now is on community engagement and sourcing of the ideas. So like the East Coast Greenway, like that needs to, that's an example, but there's many others. But if you guys had a list of projects that were priorities, which I think a lot of them will come out of the SS4A grant effort, but I think that's where, I'm trying to figure out where Bike and Ped fits into the whole process, but I think you're at the very beginning.
I was just going to, based on the conversation earlier today, at work, public engagement usually occurs at the 38%, 60%, 90% basis, but that's kind of late, because if people are opposed and you're first presenting it to them at 30% design phase, you've kind of lost the battle, right? That if you could kind of do the public engagement at the 0% before things get going and get them on board, we can probably reduce a lot of the friction and costs that are associated with that. Yeah.
Because I said exactly the same thing to Mega. I said, well, do you engage at 10%? Because 10% is usually scoping.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, no, we usually 30%. And because I said the exact same thing to her an hour and a half ago. Exactly the same thing.
That was a weekly meeting I had this morning.
Yeah, but so I think you guys need to figure out where you want to be in the process. And I'll get, Christine has a process flow that's laid out. It's got a lot of red marks on it. But I'll get that to you guys, and we need to figure out where you fit in the process.
Yeah, because I think too, one of the goals that we're having as a committee is to have like greater community engagement. How are we going to reach people? We're going to be the ones that are hearing these issues. Like we have a resident input link that kind of sat dormant for a while. So we have data already of things that residents are looking at that I've shared with Megan. I've bubbled up some themes, but I agree that that's probably makes sense and the right fit.
You were on the call. You were.
I was on for till almost 2 hours. No, I already gave a little brief synopsis.
But it's, I think if we can get this policy manual, and you guys, this is my rogue effort, so I've got a little off the reservation on this, I should say. I'm off the path on that. But if you guys give me some feedback on that and how you want that to work, whether you guys want to endorse it, whether you don't want to endorse it, but
I think we can get that in front of the committee, get it cleaned up, and then we can have everybody read it and give feedback and then move forward, because we do need a complete streets policy plan, and it hasn't been looked at since it was drafted originally with the original bike ped, and the criteria is different, and obviously technology has changed, a lot has changed, so it definitely needs to be brought up to the new standard.
You've done something recently, so.
I'm sorry. I know what Jeff's worked. I've commented on what Jeff's worked on. I'm just saying, as a committee.
I saw you in there.
Okay. As a committee, I'm saying once we have to put it in front of everybody, have it reviewed, looked at.
Okay. Just sorry. Sorry for my confusion.
Yeah.
So that's. Any other questions about the LTA? What they do? What they're.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more? I know these two know this, but so the local traffic authority it's a state designated responsibility that makes the decisions on all road improvements in a municipality, and it's governed by the state legislature, the state enabling act that grants municipalities the right to do that, and there's a group called the local traffic authority. And typically, like in Stamford, it's the head of Department of Public Works. Here, in most places, it's the police commission, which has been hugely problematic. So Bill Gerber is the first one. We're the first town I guess it was Garrett Ucolato he allowed municipalities to create their own independent LTA rather than it's being resident in engineering or the police. I think the police commissioner is the default.
If a town has a police commission, it is the default. In some instances, it's the board of selectmen because towns aren't all size like.
But the common thread is people who don't really have any engineering training whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so Bill wanted to shift that to a more representative group, and I think he put together a pretty good group. I'm terrible with names. The guy who's the head of, Stanford's.
So yeah, Frank Batiste, who's
Frank
the head of
Batiste, yeah.
Stanford's transportation
Yeah.
manager, whatever, I don't know what the,
He lives in Fairfield.
he lives in, he's a former RTM member, but he runs the Stanford engineering group that oversees transportation planning.
Police Chief Emmeline Harrigan, who's soon to be our director of planning. There's,
Bill and Mega.
Bill and Mega.
Kevin Kiley, who's he's on the police commission.
And I'm an alternate. So.
Yeah, and then there's 2 other alternates, I think,
Yeah.
so. Cool.
But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
We're gonna figure out how this group fits in with the LTA,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important.
I agree.
That's great. Thank you
Okay.
to both of you for filling us in.
Awesome. Okay, so next on the agenda is to vote on the speed camera policy support letter. So did everybody have a chance to look at that? I guess a motion to vote and then we discuss, I think is how it works, so.
I didn't see it.
Okay.
Do you have it printed?
I do not. It was in the email for, but essentially it's just saying that the committee supports the ordinance that the RTM is taking up on Monday. So what I'd like to do is have the committee approve it, and then I will go and read it into the record for Monday's meeting. You're obviously also welcome to send your own personal support letters. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Did you find it, Alex?
I did.
Okay.
I thought this was good.
Great. Do you need a minute?
No, I got it.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, so it carries. Okay, Amy, I think I'll turn it over to you for social media goals discussion, and I sent you the passwords for...
Yes, I actually have to figure out how to log in. Actually, I have to figure out what my own passwords are. When I log out to log into the bike ped, I can get back into my own account.
Instagram makes it easy. I think you'll be fine, but...
Also, yeah, you can open in private browsers, just keep logging in and figuring out. That's
Well,
what I would do.
Yeah, I have to, the other thing is I can
Okay.
do this at home because all this is like blocked on
Yeah.
my work stuff, and I don't want to figure out how to do it on my phone. So, and of course I forgot to print out what I updated in the spreadsheet, but I had talked with Lisa, just on some general guidelines for what we post. And really the biggest one that we have to follow is we have to be very careful to make sure that it is politically neutral, right? So regardless of who posts it, whether it's, Brenda posts it or Bill Gerber posts something, whatever, we can't just like repost what they post.
Oh, we can't repost if it's coming from...
No, she said, if they have something that you want to post, she said, reach out to them.
Source or something.
Right, and say that you're not going to cite them, so they put something up there that we think is valuable, right? We can't just kind of re-forward it. We've got to make it our own, take the content, and not cite whoever it came from, right? Because that's still, I guess, winding its way through the... I don't even know what committee it is that leads.
Where do you want it? I'm gonna move.
Something on stories. The Republican Town Committee turned her in, right? Even though just have to be very careful, of that. And she did give me some good ideas on, creating content. I've got to get familiar with Canva. I have a free account. You can do a lot more with a paid account, which obviously we're not going to get because we're not paid. But one of the things that I learned was that the algorithms only send to 10% of who your followers are when you post. So,
yeah,
which is really low. So I think, one of our goals is, well, that's kind of it for Bike Ped on IG too, because I think we only have 80 followers on Instagram. And
is it the kind of thing where if all of us like it, it bumps it up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we could have that as just a responsibility that when something goes out, there's an email that also goes out. Can you please go like X?
Well, and I think if you are more active with an account, it gets served to you. So
by definition.
That's why you keep, you see the same thing or things from the same people or the same whatever.
And if I may, just real quick, the health department does have a paid Canva account. So if you need help creating any content, we're more than happy to do that for you. And then if you tag us, we can reshare it on our social medias as well.
Perfect. That's
okay,
great.
Thank you.
Tina.
Yeah. And she also gave me some other hints on, when we're posting on someone else's site, right, putting the link to Bike Ped, encouraging them to follow us. Just some suggestions on how to increase the number of people that are following us on both Instagram and Facebook. Although I think once we get going and we post on a more regular basis, because I think, Facebook, there hasn't been a post since June on Facebook, and probably something similar on Instagram. And I wanted to do, now that I have the passwords, right, I want to look more closely at who's following us, and just to get a sense of who's been interested in the past. Is it residents? Is it other Bike Ped advocates kind of thing? And the important thing is to follow them back. So I just want to look at it before I don't want to just randomly follow people back.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Then the next things I think we need to talk about are, what should my aim be as far as posting frequency? Obviously, sometimes there's going to be more than others, right? Like we're going to sound cyclists, the blooming metric, right? We'll be potentially doing things for that. That's probably going to be like at least a weekly post to promote it when it gets in, or the bike buses, right? When those happen, there'll be more things to post. But the thing we had talked about the last meeting I was at, right, was like, what's the goal of our posting? Like, what do we want to achieve with our posts?
So maybe we can get into that a little bit.
So I think that's really what I want to talk or have tonight is more of a discussion on what we think the goals of our posting should be. Like,
I have some ideas, but don't know if anybody else wants to go first. Okay. So I see it as like promotion, right? Our own events, our public meetings, policy changes, partnership promotion, so other relevant town events like Sustainable Fairfield, the health department, awareness and education. So education about like what complete streets look like, education about why protected bike lanes are good, education about why driving slower speeds are good, and then also like to build a community of advocates. So people that we can, when we post these things, we can get people to show up. Because actually, I didn't talk about it tonight, but the three of us went to the I-95 mobility. Sandy was there too,
I didn't,
and,
sorry, I didn't get to say that.
No, that's okay. And so a bunch of us went, but other than us and Sarah Roy and like somebody from Chris Murphy's office, that was like it. It was very not.
We are outnumbered by the staff.
So I would love to get to a point when like we post something on our social media channels and like it actually gets people out the door and like knowing about it, and it's not just the same, you know, involved people that are there. Like we're actually building relationships and getting people involved to show up and advocate for these things, because the mobility study, when it first came out, I thought it's like, oh, it's just I-95, and it's like, no, it's like off of 95 for a good portion. So it's portions of Mill Plain, it's portions of Post Road, it's like Route 8, 130, you know, it's a lot more than just like moving traffic better on I-95. So those are my thoughts.
I like it.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I think, you know, one thing, I'm not familiar with Canva, but I assume it's a tool that can manage multiple social media accounts, or?
No, it's like a graphic design tool.
I think you're thinking about like Hootsuite.
Oh, how much?
Yeah, I was thinking of Hootsuite.
We do have some, sorry, I totally spoke over you.
Oh, no, it's fine. All I was saying is that, you know, like, we should, once you know, if we agree on those areas that Sarah mentioned, which I think are great, you know, just coming up with like guidelines for how to post and how often, and using a tool like a Hootsuite or something that will allow you to kind of like schedule certain posts, you know, so that we can start to fill, because like, as you said, if the Facebook hasn't been updated since, you know, and however long, like frequency counts for a lot in terms of the engagement, and so I think
that's a good idea.
Just building out a schedule and scheduling that schedule of things, like
there's a tool that does that?
Yeah, you can do that through.
Yeah, it's called Hootsuite. I've never used.
What's it called?
Hootsuite, Hootsuite.
That's one of a few different tools that would do that, which would allow you to kind of like almost create a campaign. So if there's rules of things like, I can't even read my own handbook, but partnership, promotion, awareness and education, community, and building a community of advocates. So like for some of those, you could just have that as like, you know, a grouping of messages, and schedule things around education, and maybe things around safety and awareness could be done, you know, in seasons, you know, like in the appropriate season, like in the spring when people are starting to get out again.
And we should sync, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
If we should sync up with the Safe Streets Alliance group, because there's going to be social media coming out of that that's timed with what Alex is suggesting too.
And then I have one question, and this may complicate things and it's not worth discussing, but oftentimes social media is designed to kind of take someone to a website or a web page. And I'm wondering if there's a way that the Bike Ped Committee could be given a web page on the town website where that could be a repository for a lot of the information that we're sharing. And it could also be a place like where a survey would sit, et cetera.
Yeah, we do have a web page. That
way, you know, like, oh, you just read about something, where did I see it? Because getting back to finding something is often a little tricky. And
we'd have to investigate kind of that, but we do have a web page through the town.
That may not be something that we want to try day one, but it may be the ultimate goal.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was,
okay, cool.
Depending on the technology you guys use for your marketing campaigns, you can analyze the content that people are engaging with the most, and then somebody like a Marketo or a Braze will, it'll automatically allow you to create similar content that's close enough but also different enough to be able to just schedule and follow up with people.
The only thing is because like virtually no funds. So some of these cost money.
I used to work for Marketo, and we had a free level, like a free level, and then I just started adding on pieces. Again, I worked for that company
This is a great interview.
10 years ago.
More recently than any of us.
But I mean, there are a bunch of them. And then just as you use it more, and depending on like your API calls, you get charged. And it starts at just like a couple pennies, but a bunch of them are free as well.
Some of us are still getting to know Google Docs. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Cover a couple other ideas.
Yeah.
One, just a note on Canva. How much is it to get a paid version? Would it,
I don't know.
So we do have just about $650 as a committee. And if we think we're going to be using Canva on a regular basis, I can't imagine it being more than that. That could be something we can cover out of the few $100 we have.
Yeah. So let me try to figure out the free version first.
Okay. Okay.
Right, because we might end up, but once we come up with what we want to post, how often, right, and then the types of content, right, we may not even end up using it that often.
Also, if you're figuring out for the first time, Jenna, I can't remember her last name, she's on PD, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm very
her last name.
I can find out her last name. Anyway, she's on the Safe Streets Alliance, so she's pretty invested in this kind of work. And she loves Canva. She does a lot in Canva, both for the Safe Streets Alliance. Oh, that's not bad.
$120.
$120
for one license.
So you can decide if it's worthwhile.
We can add you as a user on our account for Canva. Yeah, so we have, I think we have up to 5. I think we can have I'll have to check tomorrow, but I think we can have up to 5 users. And right now it's just myself and one of my colleagues. So we can always add someone into our paid account.
Great, that's awesome.
That covers that. But I would bring up Jenna because I think if you need somebody to sit down with and just have them walk you through it, I have a feeling Jenna would be happy to do it.
Yeah, at least as she would.
Jenna Wellington's her last.
Yeah, I think the free one can't download the images. Like, you can create it, and they're like, oh, doesn't this look great? But then you can't use it.
If you have access, if you have somebody who's going to walk you through it, great. So if you bring Jenna, that was just an offer. Somebody who seems like a pro at it. Okay. And goals, sorry. Other ideas for goals that I had that we haven't talked about is socializing upcoming projects. Did we talk about that? I don't think we did. So I feel like letting, to the point of the 10% to 30%, plugging into that and just, not just the events, which I think are very important, as Sarah said, but also just like progress updates. Hey, did you know this is coming to town? Did you know we just got this done? Did you know the speed cameras are up for review? And here's why speed cameras we think are a good idea. We could take a perspective, I assume, on that. So anything that the town is doing, whether it's technology projects, so whether it's infrastructure projects, I think it'll be really good to socialize it on our social media. And another one that we haven't discussed is bringing awareness to bike and pedestrian accidents in town. Because I think that brings urgency to everything else.
For sure.
I'm just curious, what do you imagine? Do you want to just say this is where there was a collision today, or?
I could see one or both. I could see either just saying, hey, this happened, and maybe if that's all we have in the moment, I think that could be worthwhile. I don't know, I'm on the fence. But I could.
Say that again?
That's aside from social media, but just to answer the social media and how it works. Okay. I think ideally, I would love to post it with context, so like what Sarah said, hey, there was this kid who got hit, but I think that raises more questions than answers, somebody gets hit in a scooter, so maybe we can wait until we get a little bit of insight and say, hey, this happened, I don't know how to say this without shaming this particular, and so maybe there's a better way, but remember to wear your reflective gear so you can avoid this happening.
And not going against the light, right.
Yeah, or in the case of Burroughs and Fairfield Woods, hey, there was somebody killed Fairfield Woods and Burroughs, this has happened numerous times. Here's an infrastructure idea that we can do and we should advocate for. Mm-hmm. So that way, giving perspective, that's not just that's avoidable. Here's the way we should be addressing this.
I think I'm sort of on the fence about the whole thing, just because
You said what whole thing?
the, like, posting about the accidents, because there's so much sensitivity there, like, you know, using the scooter example, if you were to like, right, don't forget to wear reflective gear.
I think that might not be a great one, that feels like kidding. I like.
Yeah, it's like, really, like, who's gonna do that?
Yeah, I think maybe if there's an infrastructure change that could come out of it, or like that hasn't been addressed and you're trying to get more voice to power to make those changes, I think that's probably the more appropriate.
Yeah, right.
Because I agree, like the scooter one is kind of tough, like, you know, but,
the other thing is we could just maintain a map also, you know, like this is, and so that people can see.
That I like, I mean, overall, while that may be more complicated, I like that idea a lot, because it's just showing where incidents, I mean, it's not writing any narrative whatsoever.
Right,
about,
there's no
like,
value judgment.
Yeah, there's no value judgment.
Yeah.
So I like the map idea.
I think that goes back to the very beginning of the meeting, like our ability to get the data.
Yeah.
That's.
the data exists, yeah.
Well, I know it exists, but like, but how do we get it sort of going to the interactive page every day and filtering for?
That's a good idea.
Okay,
Well,
Jeff will provide.
But not every day, like, you know.
Yeah.
But if we said quarterly or something,
that's
it
fine.
is, getting the data is a beast though, it's
You're talking about the Yukon data, yeah, and I'm not sure how updated that is. I think we can
But it
get,
also depends.
I think we can get information from the Fairfield Police Department,
Yeah,
so we need to.
Yukon only, like, they don't, do we
Well,
know if they have
Megan said a few months ago there has been a big lag in what's getting reported up through the Yukon stuff. So I think there's a whole dashboard that the PD maintains, so we just have to figure out how to get in there and see if they will track this, like, particular thing for us. So we can investigate that.
On content, just a member of the public, the best practices might be well received. I don't know, that's what I post that on some of our chat groups, but just like what other places are doing that are kind of cool. So, because there's a lot out there right now that's going on.
You had done all that research on e-bikes and so on, and that would be a great thing to.
Yeah.
What was I waiting on?
So Watch For Me CT,
Oh, Watch For Me CT, right.
is supposed to be coming out with like a one-pager.
Yeah, I did check, when I used, to see if it's out there yet. I checked like last week, it wasn't out yet, and then I thought about bugging them, so I looked up when we last had the call, and it wasn't only just about a month ago, and I feel like we should give them 2 months before we bug them, because it wasn't like coming out tomorrow, and these things take a while. So I am on it. It's on the list. I'm checking.
I never wrote what, I didn't.
They're basically coming out with a flyer that's extremely similar to what you've been working on.
Right.
So they have more resources than us.
Yeah.
If they get it done and we think it's awesome,
We
could be done.
Yeah.
Or if we want to use that, if we want to ask them for the raw file, and, because they're very open,
Yeah.
and add whatever we think is important, we can do that as well.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for the social media goals? Okay, great. Sorry, I do have one thing under new business that I wanted to, so, the town today applied for a STEEP grant.
What is that?
I don't know what it stands for. I think it's a small town economic grant, something like that. But it's for shovel-ready projects, I'm pretty sure, from my very brief, reading of it. So basically the town had a project plan already in place for extending sidewalks on Reef Road or repairing sidewalks that are on Reef Road. So the grant will be for about, I think, $600,000, and then the town would supply $120,000 to make improvements like tripping hazards, widening, ADA compliance, things like that. So the grant was due today at 3:30, so we didn't get a chance. I would like to write a letter of support in for the grant if it is requested. So Bill Hurley just wrote that he could probably get one from the Bike and Ped Committee in the grant. So I would just like to, I didn't have a chance to write it, but it will just be in support of this particular grant to extend the sidewalks, because there's a commercial area, beach walking, people don't have to be driving, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like to get the committee's support for that tonight, so that, and then as a side issue, I would like to kind of look into if there's some way we can systematize this so that like if these last minute things come up, we can do them and not necessarily like not have it be part of the original grant package. But I'm going to have to look into what is kind of permissible on that type of thing.
Doesn't seem like this should happen ever again. Like, really.
No, I do think like that, like hopefully we'll be applying for more grants and like, I don't know, the process stuff that
You could approve a standard letter.
right, that's what I was hoping, so. So can we vote to approve me providing a support letter for this particular grant?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Motion to approve, second, all in favor?
Who seconded it?
Sandy, Alex.
Aye.
Okay, great, it carries. All right, I think that's it. Does anybody else have any other business?
Oh, what about the calendaring stuff?
Oh my God.
Can we do that offline?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we
So
could probably
let's
do that
just
offline.
But let's give some context.
Go ahead, yeah,
All
all
right,
right.
fine. So,
Sorry, it's getting late.
I love this. I love the idea of not doing this now. So we started work on a calendar for the committee of different events that have previously existed in the past and solicited some ideas for some new, new events that we might want to host. And we also came up with some improvements to some existing, things that we've done in the past. And I've put together a calendar doc. I linked it from our tracker that Anya sent around. So it's now in a much more consumable table format, like where it'll be like April, event, May event, June, etc. So every one of these should probably have an owner. So between now and the next meeting, if everyone can look at and I can redistribute the link, but look at the calendar, see if it's something that you would be interested in owning, and then put your name in the ownership column. And then we can, or if you don't want to do that and you want to discuss it at the next meeting, but I think given that, the next meeting is March and some of these events are going to be quickly coming, that by next meeting, each of these events has an owner. And if there are any issues or other ideas, you can put them in the table in the document. And, but I think we should go through that next meeting.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, and then sorry, just a couple of updates from Mary. She had to jump off, but the bike rodeo, which is the Earth Day, Healthy Kids Day, is April 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We should.
April 26th?
Yeah, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And so I confirmed to her that we will be participating in that.
Alan put that in the updated.
Oh, he did? Oh, okay. She said she didn't hear back from him. So it's weird. Okay.
Is there any other Sunday?
Sorry?
Is it?
I don't know. I think it's usually Saturday. And then she confirmed that they have the bike helmets from Yale. So I don't know if that's something you want to follow up on, but it looks like Maureen Cinto at the Y contacted them.
They have the helmets.
Okay.
I think I would weigh in if they hadn't bought them yet to see like.
Well, it just says that they're donating them. So I don't know if there's a contact at Yale through this woman at the Y.
Sorry, so what I asked.
I don't know. All right, okay.
I like the
all right.
ball is rolling. They picked that helmet, they're donating them. Let's just.
Okay, all right.
I feel like this is not a fight I'm gonna.
Okay, any other new business? Okay, motion to adjourn.
Yay.
All in favor? All
Aye.
right, great. Thanks, Santina, if you're still there.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much.